Hey, what's up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all my banlist prediction for the upcoming September 2020 banlist. I know that there's a lot of people speculating that this upcoming banlist isn't going to be too big, especially after just seeing 3 unlimits on the previous list back in April. However, I'm fairly certain that we are going to see a bit of a bigger list. With the remote duel invitational finished, we can use the results and lists of those high profile players to come to a sort of conclusion about problematic cards this format. And also, with remote duel locals supposedly picking up traction, with them being a big thing being pushed by Konami at the moment, I think they will feel more comfortable hitting some of the older cards of the current format, and I think we'll actually see a couple more cards than usual to make up for the lack of a list back in April. So yeah, my list is going to be a little bit more extensive than Tombox's. Keep in mind though that we do need to factor in previous and upcoming product releases, since even if we had events, it's unlikely that we'd see any cards hit directly if they were released within the last year or so. With that in mind, let's jump into it. Kicking things off, we have Block Dragon, which I think is a card that a lot of people have had on their minds ever since back in April. When we look at Adamanticipators, the deck is really strong, but on the surface it's just a very strong combo deck, kind of like Dragon Link. However, what really sets the deck over the top is Block Dragon, which basically allows the deck to replenish the hand with 3 additional extenders, allowing the setup of some absolutely insane boards, or alternatively allowing you to keep resources in hand in order to do some combos with next turn. What's even more ridiculous is that you can summon Block Dragon multiple times a turn. So if you can end on Block Dragon and IP Masquerena, you can get the Block Dragon search during your opponent's turn, in addition to the disruption of Nightmare Unicorn, which is absolutely ridiculous. Now I know that some people think that limiting Block Dragon is sufficient, but I'm going to say that Block Dragon ought to be outright banned. Putting the card to 1 has a minimal impact on the deck, since it's a card that's basically always accessible with either Union Carrier or Gallant Granite. Even though you could use something like DD Crow or Called by the Grave to hit the Block Dragon out of the graveyard before they have a chance to summon it multiple times, at that point your opponent will probably already have some sort of negate set up on the board to help ensure that Block Dragon can resolve. So yeah, I honestly think that Block Dragon should have been hit on the last ban list. The power that it gives to Adamanticipators is just so ridiculous that I think it's a card that needs to be banned in order to completely tone back the power of Adamanticipators. The next banned card is kind of a weird pick. It is Earthbound Immortal Aslapiscu. This is a card that has popped up multiple times over the last couple years, most recently as a part of the Dragon Link FTK that also uses Explode a Rocket Dragon in order to FTK your opponent. I would expect this card to get hit just because it facilitates some cheesy FTKs, and Konami has done a fairly decent job of hitting problem FTK pieces within the last little while, with cards like Arcanite Magician and Phoenician Cluster Amaryllis being banned. With Garden Rose Maiden making Black Garden so easily searchable, I'm sure that if left unchecked, we're bound to see some more silly FTKs pop up. The card is also too easily accessible with Union Carrier in the game now, since Aslapiscu just needs to leave the field wall face up in order to activate its effect, which includes if it is being equipped to something. So yeah, I don't know if this one is absolutely necessary because we haven't really seen too many people playing the Dragon Link FTK recently, but it's a hit I would like to see to discourage the development of some more degenerate FTKs. Next up, Jet Syncron is a card that a lot of people were saying should have been banned back in April with the previous list. It's effectively a 1-card Needle Fiber, since you just need to discard any card from your hand to summon it back from the graveyard. However, it's also searchable via tuning, meaning that you can effectively run 6 copies of Jet Syncron in your deck, and it can also be summoned from the graveyard even if summoned off of Needle Fiber, so you can use it to make Auroradon off of the Needle Fiber, bring Jet back, and then go into something like Herald of the Arclight. So yeah, I do think that Jet Syncron is another card that is going to end up banned on this list. The card is really versatile and strong, both on its own as a starter as well as an extender. All things considered, I thought that Jet Syncron was going to be banned back in April, and even though we've seen decks and strategies evolve to where Jet Syncron maybe isn't as strong or broken as it was back then, I still think it's a card that should be addressed on the list, and I would be really surprised if it isn't touched at all. Alright, so maybe this one is a little bit more of a controversial pick. I actually have Mecha Phantom Beast O-Lion being banned, so in thinking of what cards need to be hit on this list, I really wanted to address Needle Fiber in some way, and by doing more than just hitting Jet Syncron, since I think that's only part of the problem. The issue is that Needle Fiber, Linkross, and Auroradon, all cards that I could see realistically being banned, all came out within the last 6 months or so, so they're extremely unlikely to be hit themselves. To be honest, if you told me that any of those cards were banned, right, I'd be pretty happy because it means that we won't see as much of the crazy synchro spam that we've been seeing from absolutely everything. I just think it's very unlikely to happen. And of course, limiting any of those cards doesn't really do anything since they're run at 1 most of the time anyways, and that wouldn't actually solve the problem. That being said, I actually think that banning O-Lion is the move that makes the most sense. O-Lion is the card summoned out by Auroradon, or Needle Fiber if you aren't playing Auroradon, who then facilitates the whole combo with Martial Metal Marcher. Now let's get this out of the way. Martial Metal Marcher is by no means like a broken card or anything, it's just a really good card. Rather, by hitting the O-Lion, even if you can go into another level 2 tuner like Genba so that you can make the Marcher and bring the Genba back, you don't get the token that O-Lion provides, which is a very important piece. I actually think that by addressing both O-Lion and Jet Syncron, you hit the whole Needle Fiber combo just enough to where we might start seeing some diversity in the lines of play that the engine uses. Furthermore, O-Lion was just reprinted as an ultra rare in Battles of Legend Armageddon, so I think it's fairly unlikely that banning O-Lion will affect any flow of upcoming product releases. I'm sure that somewhere along the way, even with these 2 cards banned, someone will find other ways to abuse Needle Fiber and Linkross, and maybe even Auroradon. So yeah, overall, I'm hoping that in banning O-Lion, this is the most effective way for us to hit the standard Needle Fiber combos that have taken over the game recently without hitting any of the recently released cards. Okay, so this is a pick that I'm a bit on the fence about. It is Guardragon LP. So Dragon Link is by no means the best deck of the format, but I would argue that it's in the top 5 or 6 decks or so right now, given how diverse the format that we're currently playing in is. And to be honest, I don't think that LP is a ridiculously broken card right now either, especially with the errata to Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. However, I do think that we're going to see a piece of the Dragon Link deck get hit on this ban list, and the most realistic piece to hit is Guardragon LP. LP is the piece that allows you to fetch any resource out of your deck basically, either directly or by using Omni Dragon Brotar, which is also a really good card. But really my reasoning for hitting Guardragon LP is that I think it's time for us to see Dragon Link slowly moved out of the format in order to make room for some new decks. We've seen Dragon Link as part of the meta for quite some time, well over a year, and the deck has seen success on and off over that time. I think that if left unchecked, we're going to continue to see success from the Dragon Link strategy. However, I think Konami will slowly want to move the deck out of the meta as we see other strategies take over, and between Adamantipator's, Eldritch, Dogmatica Invoked, Numeron Altergeist, and Infernoble Knight, there are just too many decks that they want to push out to people and encourage them to play for Dragon Link to stick around for too much longer. Also, they literally just reprinted a bunch of Dragon Link cards in the Megatins, cards like World Legacy, Guardragon, and Omni Dragon Brotar, so with those out of the way, there's not really a way that hitting Dragon Link affects upcoming product. And also, to be fair, it's not like Dragon Link is completely dead without LP, right? I think they still have things that they can do with the Rocket engine completely intact, and they have Black Metal Dragon and Starlight Seyfert. It still has some plays. So yeah, this one is kind of a 50-50 for me. It's maybe not necessary in terms of Dragon Link taking over the meta or anything like that, but from the perspective of looking at what decks they're trying to encourage people to play because they use cards from more recent products as a way to generate sales, hitting dragons by banning LP makes a lot of sense. So Mystic Mine is a card that I'm not really going to talk too much about here. I personally think that the card should have never been printed. Yes, I know that you can play around it with things like Cosmic Cyclone or Twin Twisters just to get rid of the card, but I don't like cards that reduce the state of the game down to where you can't play around the card unless you draw your like one specific out. There are of course going to be people that want the card to stay unbanned as a way to balance out the game, but I am not one of those people. So yeah, I guess you could say that this is more of a personal preference than an actual prediction, since I think you could have argued realistically that Mystic Mine could have been banned on any of the last couple of ban lists, but until they finally hit this card, it's going to keep popping up on the forbidden section of my ban list predictions. And the last card that I have banned here is Smoke Grenade of the Thief. This is actually another card that I'm kind of 50-50 on, but I think that it is something that should be hit. Smoke Grenade is a super old card that has only really seen niche usage throughout the history of Yu-Gi-Oh!, but is now a key card in Infernoble Knights, an actually meta-relevant strategy. This card is used because of Charles, who allows you to equip and then pop the Smoke Grenade during the end phase of your first turn, which allows you to look at your opponent's hand and send one of their key cards from the hand to the graveyard. To be fair, I think that if it was either one, like either you get to look at your opponent's hand or you discard a random card of theirs, this card would be pretty okay, but both of those things combined is kind of broken. Being able to gain insight into not only what deck your opponent is playing, but what cards and extenders they have access to, and then hit a card out of their hand that will hurt them the most is really big. This is especially true if your opponent has used hand traps and their hand size is down to like 3 or 4 cards. The card that you rip and the knowledge that you gain is even more impactful. On the flip side, the reason I think that this card might not get hit is because the Infernoble Knight deck feels considerably weaker without access to Smoke Grenade as one of the main selling points of the strategy. At the same time, Smoke Grenade is almost a $20 common, and I could definitely see them putting it in maximum gold as a somewhat sought after card before eventually banning the card maybe early next year. But for me personally, I think that Smoke Grenade just puts you in too much of a strong position, especially if you can resolve it with a Borreload Savage Dragon on the field for that extra negate, and I think that banning it gets rid of a key problem card in the meta. So a couple of cards that I want to briefly mention here that I excluded from the forbidden section here are True King of All Calamities and number S0 Utopic Zexal. I think that one of the key things that we've learned from the last couple of weeks of results is that the Numeron engine isn't nearly as good as it was hyped up to be, with cards like Infinite Impermanence, Siphon Gear Gamma, and Forbidden Droplet all functioning as outs to Utopic Zexal, and incidentally, these cards are also outs to True King of All Calamities, who I feel like is extremely similar to Utopic Zexal in terms of its ability to be oppressive. But really, the Numeron engine hasn't been strong at all and hasn't performed well, and I don't think that it's justifiable to ban Utopic Zexal at this point. To be fair, if you ban Utopic Zexal, the Numeron engine gets even worse, which would negatively affect the sales of Battles of Legend Armageddon, though maybe that's not at the forefront of Konami's concern, but they also want to make sure that Forbidden Droplet stays as a highly sought after card in Rise of the Duelist as the most recent main set, and by keeping Utopic Zexal available in the game, the value of Forbidden Droplet will stay up as well, as long as casual players and maybe those that aren't as concerned about playing top tier decks have the option of running Utopic Zexal. And of course, as long as they aren't hitting Utopic Zexal, I think that they will continue to leave True King of All Calamities unbanned as well, which is why I have excluded both of these cards on my list. Onto the limited section, I have one card coming from 0 to 1. It is Blaster, Dragon Ruler of Infernos. I really do think that Blaster is not a problem card at this point, so long as both Redox and Title stay banned. I explained this briefly before on the last Banlist Prediction back in April, but I think that Blaster is the safest card to come off the list. Its ability to pop a card by discarding it and another fire monster is kind of irrelevant, especially when you consider that you have Eldritch running around with an even stronger effect, and really, there aren't very many fire decks in the meta that would actually be able to abuse this card. Salamangre wants to keep resources in the graveyard, and Infernobles don't really play enough fire monsters to abuse Blaster that much, and even if you summoned out Blaster, Infernobles can't really do that much with it. I mean, compared to the other Dragon Rulers, Redox is an extra copy of Monster Reborn for Adamancipators, and it's another body just like Block Dragon, so I don't want to see that. That can stay banned. And I feel like Tidal would just push Mermails over the top yet again, so that can stay banned as well. But yeah, Blaster I definitely think is the safest of the Dragon Rulers to come off the ban list, and I think it could be an interesting card to see play in something like Dragon Link to help make up for the loss of Elpie. Alright, now we are on to limited cards, and I have Soul Eating Oviraptor going to 1. I know that a lot of people didn't really want to see dinosaurs get hit on an upcoming ban list, but I really think that we're going to see something from dinosaurs hit. For one, Team Samurai X1 took first place at the Remote Duel Invitational Tournament, and I don't think that that's something that you can just turn a blind eye to. It's not like it was a regular regional top, it was against some of the best players from North America as well as Tombucks, and even though I understand that there were some misplays and stuff like that, it was a great showing for sure. I think that when looking at dinosaurs, there's also not really anything left to sell in terms of product. They just rewaved the Dino Smashers Fury structure deck a couple of months ago, so all of those cards are now quite cheap, and most of the cards that you play are just commons and stuff. The exceptions, I suppose, are Giant Rex, which is only a few dollars, Jirac-Aeolo, which is quite an old card, and Archosaur, which is like $40 or so, but I guess it's not seeing a reprint until next year's Megatins anyways. I think that Oviraptor is the strongest card in the deck, as it's either a Stratos or an Armageddon Knight for any dinosaur in the game. It allows you to pop Baby Ceratosaurus to summon out another Baby Ceratosaurus from your graveyard while still triggering the effect of the first one, and it also is a level 4 dinosaur, giving you access to Evilzor Logia or Evilzor Dolka as well. Keep in mind that Oviraptor is still searchable via Fossil Dig, which would presumably still stay at 3, or you can summon it off of Miscellaneousaurus, which is another card that I could potentially see going to 1, but I'd rather see a hit on Oviraptor. I don't think that limiting Oviraptor will completely kill off dinos, it just severely hurts the consistency of the deck. You can still make the same boards with the one Oviraptor, you're just doing it with a lot less consistency. But yeah, because of the showing of the deck and the fact that there's not really any more dinosaur related product coming out anytime soon, I'm expecting dinosaurs to get hit, and I'm expecting that hit to be the limiting of Soul Eating Oviraptor. The last hit that I have here is Magical Meltdown. This is one that I actually thought would happen last time as well, and it's more of another product driven hit. The Invoked engine has been one of the most splashable engines that Yu-Gi-Oh has seen for the last couple of years. We've seen it mixed with different decks like the Eldritch, Shaddolls, and Mech Knights, so many strategies that didn't need to take advantage of their normal summon, but would like to add a consistent engine that makes their end board stronger. Well, the Invoked did that perfectly, but I think it's about time for us to see another different engine take over, and that is almost certainly going to be the Dogmatika released in Rise of the Duelist. The Dogmatika is so powerful with Nadir's Servant going into Ecclesia and then fetching out either Maximus, Fleur-de-Lis, or Punishment, depending on the situation, and rather than being an engine that uses your normal summon, this is an engine that locks you out of your extra deck. However, I feel like they fulfill the same roles. Either one is going to give you an extra bit of consistency in your main deck and take up a few extra deck slots for some disruption, so I feel like the Dogmatika could very easily take over the engine slot where the Invoked was seeing play before. However, I feel that in order to help push this along, they're going to need to hit the Invoked engine in some way, as it has really become the default splashable engine that a lot of people turn to. Limiting Magical Meltdown hurts the consistency of the Invoked engine as you lose 2 1-card starters for the engine. Furthermore, with the reprint of Invocation in Battles of Legend Armageddon, despite that reprint being yet another short print, Konami has really milked the value from the Invoked engine, giving everything from the archetype multiple printings except I think Book of Law. So yeah, in order to help us push into the next phase of Yu-Gi-Oh! With a new engine that will take over the role that the Invoked used to play, I'm expecting to see Magical Meltdown hit to 1. Alright, for semi-limits, not too much to see here. I have Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon and Pantheism of the Monarchs. Honestly, I feel like either of these could have gone to 3, but just to stay on the safe side, we'll say that they should go to 2 first. Red MD hasn't moved away from limited status in quite some time, but the fact that it is now errated means that being able to run multiple copies isn't really a big concern. In fact, I'm not even sure if you'd want to run the 2 or 3 copies. Also, Monarchs are definitely not doing anything relevant in the year 2020. The deck is still heavily dependent on its normal summon, and we're definitely way past the time where Domain Lock with a Tribute Summon monster is going to be doing anything, when we have the Buster Whelp Lock and Artifact Scythe running around, and Domain is so easily cleared by everything that gets rid of Mystic Mine. So yeah, I could see these 2 cards moving to 2 and then 3 on the next couple of lists, or just going to 3 right away. I just put these 2 as going to 2 first because I feel like they are potentially the most abusable given their history. And finally, we have the unlimited cards, just a few cards where I'm not really sure why they're on the list anymore at all. Graph is really kinda meh. Like, I understand that back in the day, summoning any monster from an archetype out of your deck for free was really crazy, right? But look at what Needle Fiber does, and then ask yourself why Graph is still limited at all. I think that we kind of need to see it back as well with the new Phantom Knight stuff coming in Phantom Rage that might potentially make Burning Abyss cards relevant once again. Performapal Skullcrabat Joker is whatever. Pendulums haven't really been relevant in the slightest ever since Electromite got banned, and Skullcrabat Joker isn't really doing that much for the deck. Sure, it's a +1, but when you're a mechanic that's as restrictive as the way that you play Pendulums now under Master Rule 5, especially compared to other decks, you need all the help that you can get. ABC Dragon Buster and Totally Awesome were 2 preemptive hits going into Master Rule 5, but I feel like they were kind of unnecessary. I think that ABC going to 3 would make the deck like a decent tier 2 deck maybe, still outclassed by things like Salamangreat and Prank Kids, where they would be playable and maybe have like the occasional regional top 8 or something like that, but not do anything too crazy. And I don't know what's up with Toad. We haven't really seen anything done with him at all. Like, I understand that Bahamut Shark into Totally Awesome is good, but I don't really even see anything making one Bahamut Shark recently. I don't know why we're so concerned about the possibility of setting up like multiple Totally Awesomes outside of like Paleo Frog if you're brave enough to play that. And then Widow Anchor is kind of alright. Like, I guess Sky Striker saw a tiny bit of play for a little bit there thanks to Ryan Yu, but really with all the new decks that have come out recently, I think they just can't hold up relative to the other things. As long as Engage stays banned, the rest of the deck just isn't scary and isn't worth worrying about. Anyways, guys, that is it for today's video. Hopefully we get our ban list sometime this week, though knowing my luck, it's probably gonna come out sometime later today. I think that happened like last year. Oh well. Anyways, if you did enjoy my ban list prediction, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button for me. Also, make sure you let me know in the comment section down below what you guys agree with on my ban list. Maybe let me know something that you didn't agree with, what you guys would hit if the list were up to you. And also, if you haven't already, make sure that you hit the subscribe button to get all of the latest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. And yeah, until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.